My name is Jocelyn, and this is my story. I was adopted at birth, and for the first 5 years of my life, I lived with my adopted dad and my adopted mom. And then after I turned 5, it was joint custody. 1 week I would be with my mother, and I lived with her husband, so my stepfather, and my 3 stepbrothers. And then the other week, it would just be me and my father. I would describe my childhood as confusing. That would probably be the first thing that comes to mind for me. Like I said, I was adopted, and I am mixed with black and white, and my adopted family is white. So just even growing up, I looked different than everybody else. I grew up even in a white neighborhood, so I looked different. My hair was different. I just looked different than everybody else. It was confusing also because I was with my dad 50% of the time. I was with my mom 50% of the time. And my dad, when I was at his house, he showed me like a lot of love. He was very kind. He never yelled at me. He never cussed in front of me until I was an adult. Like I never heard my dad cuss. But then when I was at my mother's house, she was very nasty. She was very mean to me. She would lie about me a lot. And just things were going on that just never happened at my dad's house, and things that were going on at my mom's house that, like, when I heard my friends talking, I'm like, oh, this is not what goes on at my mom's house. So like, is this normal? And it was just very confusing for me growing up, because 50% of my life was pretty normal, but the other 50% was not. So I was literally going back and forth week to week, normal, not normal, normal, not normal. So I acted out a lot as a kid. My mother was very physically abusive to me. She definitely had mental health issues. She would beat me up a lot, but I would fight her back. Actually, I would fight her back. And my stepdad would be my protector, and you'll see this evolve as I continue to talk, but he would make my mom stop hitting me. He would make my mom stop strangling me with the telephone cord or throwing me out of vehicles, and telling me that I wasn't allowed to eat because I was fat. He would protect me from those kind of things. And as time continued, protection wasn't just stopping my mother from doing stuff to me anymore. Was, oh, let me touch you, and then because I protected you from your mom doing this. And that continued to progress with him as well, him touching me and things like that, which led to more confusion, because when I went to my dad's house, none of that stuff happened. My dad never talked nasty to me. He always fed me. He would never take my lunch money from school, so I didn't have anything to eat. But my mother would. So she was more like physical, emotional abuse, which I would say the emotional abuse was worse than the physical abuse, because after a while, after she started hitting me, I would hit her back. And but with the emotional abuse, like, that always stuck with me. And then with my stepdad touching me and things like that, because I always justified it, because he never raped me, but he would make me like put my hands down his pants. He would corner me like in the room and say, I want to rape you, and things like that. So it was just very confusing and not normal. But I didn't fully realize it wasn't normal until I was an adult, because all the times that I would leave like subtle hints that things weren't right, people would think, like my adults around me would think, that I had a behavioral issue, when it was really, no, I'm getting abused at home. When I was about 5, I remember I was playing t-ball, and I was literally playing the game, like I hit the ball and I was running. My mom came out, and I was with my dad at this time. I was with my dad that week. She legitimately took me off the field and took me away from my father, because she knew that I loved my dad. My dad was good to me, and that he would do whatever to make sure I was taken care of. So then she took me away from him, and She was quite verbally abusive at that point, mostly verbally abusive. But then I remember when I was 7, I was taking a bath, and my stepdad was taking pictures of me. And he said, and I will never forget this, he told me that he wanted to be with me since the moment he met me when I was 5 years old. And that all came full circle because when I was an adult, I remember I was at a bar, and my stepdad messaged me a picture of me 7 years old in a bathtub saying how hot I looked. And I was with 2 friends that I thought were very good friends. They saw the picture, in which down the road, I ended up pressing charges on him, and they did not want to talk about the fact, like they didn't speak up when the investigators came to talk to them, because they did not want to admit that he sent those pictures to me. So, I mean, he's abused me. The abuse started with him since I was like 7, and then with my mom since I was 5, since my dad and my mom separated. So until I was over 18 years old. When I was, let's see here, 21, because I went off and got married, which is typical of people that have had abuse, physical, sexual abuse. I went off and got married to somebody I barely knew when I was 18. Came back home. After a while, I got a new boyfriend, and he had me get help. But that's when I started talking about it, and that's when I told my dad that I was abused, and he just started crying. Like, he did not realize I hid it quite well. Like, even I would have like a lot of therapists come like in home to try to help me when I was acting out this whole time because of the abuse. So a lot of people did not know that this was going on because I appeared happy, I guess. But when my dad did find out, he was heartbroken, and I'm sure he felt badly, like as a parent, because he didn't catch it sooner. Well, even at all, if I wouldn't have told him. So I think that's more difficult for him than it is for me, that he never knew, because I knew I hid it quite well. I knew that I didn't tell people, so why would he know? So I think it's harder for him that I went through these kind of things, and me not telling anybody. I think it hurts him more than it does me. One incident that has stuck out to me, that my mother has done to me, my adopted mother, that has hurt me, wasn't actually until my physical and like sexual abuse was over. And it still continues to this day. She still continues to do this. She will reach out to me via Facebook. Like, she'll make like totally different profiles, no matter how many I delete. She will message me and say like the most horrible things. Like 2 years ago, I was pressing charges on my stepfather, and she was like, "Oh, nobody will ever believe you. Daddy never came and saved you, so nobody's gonna believe you. And that I'm just like a fat, ugly, worthless, whatever, no matter what I have accomplished in life." That's probably the most hurtful to me, because come on now, she knows what he's done to me. She knows what she's done to me. And for her to say, "Oh, I wish I never would have adopted you," and this like horrible things, it bothers me, and I'm not quite sure why, because it's just words. And I have not reached out to her in years, but she still continues to harass me. It really bothers me for her to, like, come on, my abuser passed away, my stepdad. He passed away literally like 370 days ago. It's okay to admit that your husband did those kind of things. It's not only me, but a bunch of people in the family, in which I'm the only one that speaks up about it. And for her to still say those things, like I think it makes me sad, because she really needs help. Like, she's going to die this way, like angry, bitter, in denial, and thinking that her husband didn't ruin everything in this family. And that's why she's alone. Like, nobody talks to her at all. Nobody talks to her but me. I mean, not but me. Nobody talks to her at all, period. Her nieces, her nephews, her actual son, me, like nobody talks to her, but yet she still reaches out to me and says like horrible things. So that's probably the most hurtful. I think her life and what she has done to her life and how her life is now is punishment enough for her. I would have pursued my stepfather until the day I died, but he died first. So I know that he will never molest anybody again. So, but no, I've never pressed charges on her. I've never really thought to. I'm probably never going to press charges on her because she has a pretty crappy, pathetic life that she's made for herself, and she can continue to live that way until she dies. There wasn't necessarily retaliation when the family found out that I was pressing charges. It was more of, please don't involve me in this at all, because the people in my family that this is affected, they were able to press charges with me as well. And to talk to the investigator and the detective, whatever, as well. They just wanted no part of it. I don't think they were in the place where they wanted anybody to know about it. So they didn't necessarily retaliate, but they did make it clear that they didn't want anybody to know about their story, and that's fine. That's not my story to tell, but I did tell them, I'm gonna share mine. And like my grandparents, they had reservations about me posting anything about what happens to me, because they thought that my abusers would retaliate. And I made a promise to myself that everybody's going to know my story and my truth, because there's so many people that don't talk about it. When you see somebody talk about it and live through it and survive and do well for themselves and have a good life and find peace, it gets you to talk about it. It doesn't mean talk about it to the world like I do, even to accept it yourself, like to accept that these things have happened to you and to get help, whether you press charges or not, to at least get help. So there was no retaliation, but they did want to keep it hush hush, and that's fine. They can keep their story hush hush, but I won't keep mine that way. I decided I wanted to speak out against my abuse when my mother kept harassing me on Facebook, saying that nobody would ever believe me, I would never get justice for what was done to me from either my stepdad or from her. So I decided to speak out then, because there's people that are going through the same thing, literally the same thing at the same time, in the same moment, going through the same thing that I'm going through. So I wanted to speak up about it. Not only did I want to press charges, I wanted everybody to know that this is my story, but this is my story among many. Like, there are many stories that are similar to mine. Many, many, many. And the only difference is they don't talk about it. They don't tell anybody about it. They don't even get help for it. They don't even get counseling for it. So if there's some awareness that you can heal, you can press charges, people don't even know. They're like, oh, I was molested or I was raped a year ago. Can't press charges now. That's not true. So I decided that I wanted to speak up about it because I want to help other people. And ever since I have talked about my story, way too many people have messaged me saying they're going through the same thing. And that I was the first person that they told. And that's sad, because out of the 50 people that messaged me, there's like 500,000 people that have the same story. And it's sad because we're the ones that suffer from it. So that's when I had enough and I wanted to talk about it, and I will never stop talking about it. People think, oh, well, they want to ask me about my story, and they think that I won't talk about it because most don't. But I will tell you everything about my story. It's healing for me, but now it's like my story is for others. It's not even for myself anymore. So I decided that I had enough, and I will continue to speak out always, just to help somebody. At this point in my journey, I think I'm at a place where I would say 75% of my days are good days. And that's a huge accomplishment for me. My biggest thing was I didn't think I was worth anything at all. Like, there are so many things that come with being molested and to be physically and verbally assaulted. Like, there's so many things that come with it, and it's so hard to build yourself back up to think you're worth anything. And I'm at a place where, like I said, 75% of the time I feel pretty good about myself, and I know that I never deserved the things that happened to me, and it's not my fault. But still, 75% is not enough. Like, I should never feel like it was okay, or it wasn't that big of a deal what happened to me. And that's like my biggest thing. Like, sometimes 25% of the time I'm still like, well, other people have had it way worse. Sexual abuse of any kind is never okay. And I would like myself to think that 100% of the time it's never okay. If anybody were to tell me even remotely close to my story, I would tell them, wasn't your fault and it's not okay. And even still, sometimes I don't think that about my story, and that it wasn't a huge deal. So that's where I'm at now. And talking about it is very therapeutic for me. And going to therapy and knowing that it's okay to have bad days. And I've come a long, long, long way, and I have great support. Like, my dad, he's wonderful. My boyfriend, he's incredible. So I'm very lucky in that aspect. And I just keep on plucking away at it every single day, knowing that each day is a new day, and that I can have whatever life I want to, especially now because the people that hurt me are not in my life, and they are not my family. And I hope people realize that. If your mother or your father or your brother or your sister abused you, somebody saying to you, but that's still your family, don't ever listen to that, because that is so far from the truth. Family is who you want it to be and who love you and support you. And if your mother can't be that, that doesn't have to be your mother. If your father can't do that, that doesn't have to be your father. That's your choice. So I don't have a mother. I don't have a stepfather, but I have a great dad, and I have a great boyfriend, and I have great friends. So that's where I'm at right now, and I'm good with that. For anybody who is dealing with parental abuse, just know that it is never okay. Just because it's your mother, just because it's your father, does not mean it's okay. And it does not mean they're always right. It does not mean that they cannot make mistakes, even though that's more than mistakes. And that it is okay to get help. It is okay to know that that's not okay. It's okay to know that that's incorrect behavior. Just because those are your parents does not mean that anybody in this world has a right to abuse you, because they don't. And that's hard for people that are under 18. But especially for the people that are over 18, the people that abuse you aren't your family. I promise you that. They're not your family. You don't have to forgive them because they're your mother or your father. You don't have to think their behavior is okay because they're your mother or your father. It's still not acceptable behavior, and they don't have to be a part of your life. Nobody has to be a part of your life except for the people that are good to you, period. You can find people that truly love you and that truly care about you. I've had so many great women in my life that I consider just mothers that God has given to me, and have taught me so much more than my adopted mother ever has. So just know that family is who you choose. Family is people that are good to you. It's not the people that gave birth to you. It's not the people that adopted you if they don't treat you well. That's not what family is, and that's not what love is. So, and with that, you'll find peace and you'll find love. Like, I promise, you really will, especially when you let all that toxic environment go. I'm Jocelyn, and that was my story.